What is up, Macroverse? It's good to see you. Did you miss me? I missed you. It's been a whole week away, and it feels like it's been months. We took a week off. I know that Macroverse and team was at Comic Con, and there's been a lot going on. So I don't honestly know what all we're gonna get tonight. There's in my mind a lot that I want to talk about, but I'm excited to catch up with Evan and see how Comic Con went, and what we possibly can squeeze out of him, and what we have to look forward to. But anybody new that's just tuning in, I'm Tiny Universe. This is Tiny's Universe, and this is all about Macroverse and what's happening and updates and content. And I think right now it's probably a great time to bring in my good friend, Mr. Evan Matthews.
This one?
Ta-da!
Hello, sir.
How you doing?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm doing busy, but I am doing well.
Good. Busy's a good.
Yes, busy is a good thing. I thought we were busy before, but it's ramping up even more. So that is not a complaint, but it is definitely a juggle.
I was gonna say in our world, in your world, especially now, like busy is a really good thing.
Busy is a really good thing. So I'm Evan Matthews, one of the three co-founders of Macroverse. We do this stream pretty much every week. I had this notion that we would do one live from Comic-Con, but clearly that did not happen. So apologies for that last week.
Not only was I hoping that we would get a Comic-Con live stream, but I just wanted pictures, and we didn't even get pictures.
Total fail on the picture front. You know what? There is one that I can post, which is pretty funny. I will tease it by saying that on our way out, we tried to incite a revolution at Bennett's Hotel.
Uh-oh.
So,
of course it Bennett's.
Yeah, exactly. I was waiting for the news story. It was like chaos broke out at the Embassy Suites in San Diego this weekend. So that's my tease. I will post that photo with the story after the.
Why do I see you guys wearing the masks from last year's Comic-Con too?
No masks were involved. Just art and instigation. That's. But we really did. We did have a great Comic-Con. For us right now, it's we did not have a booth there. It was all about meeting people, making connections, and following up with a bunch of the people that we've been talking to and working with. Also, as a side note, our team at this point is the three co-founders, me, Adam, and Ricky, and then two kind of core additional team members. A lot of people know Bennett, who is our head of business development. But we've been working with now kind of the official fifth member of the core team, whose name is Adam Fortier now for about a year. Adam is 25 years in traditional publishing, is responsible for literally hundreds of millions of published books and comics being sold, has experience with every major publisher and brand. And so he's just been an incredible addition as we are charting this path into the combination of digital and physical, which is, I can't say a ton about the specific deals we're working on, but it's a massive undertaking for, kind of something that certainly the Web3 space has never seen. And I dare say the rest of the world has never seen either. So it's the thing I'm actually the most excited about is we're bridging these two worlds in a way that I had hoped we would eventually be able to do, but is going to be very clear within the next few months as we'll be able to start to make some announcements and show some real products. And some of the stuff we're doing is pretty crazy in the best possible way. So it's involving, you could imagine like all the technology that you've seen us build so far. We've also got two new pieces of tech that we have developed and built, which enable for some very cool things. And then being able to combine that with best of class printing and production We're working with the printer that prints almost all of Image's books, tons of Marvel stuff, all of that, but having developed some pretty cool bespoke processes to do some things that have been lost from the comics industry, as well as some things that we have now found in the comics industry. So that's my tease for how these things are coming together. But a lot of what we did at Comic-Con was meeting with some of those partners and potential new partners, and finishing, hammering out agreements and deals, and what do we need to do to get these things across the finish line.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see these comments here. What's up, Valor?
Hey.
You've got a little bit of a lag. I don't know. Do you already have anything sharing in the background, or?
I don't know. I hate that. I'm not sure why that happens on this stream. So
you're just like a couple seconds behind. I mean, like, audio's great, video's not bad. It's just not synced.
Yeah, I'm just out of sync. It's just because I'm broadcasting from the Matrix. That's what it really is. So maybe I have to mouth what I'm gonna say, then say it, and
then say it. Wow. Well, you kind of answered some of my questions there, because I think my big thing for Comic-Con was who did you talk to? But I feel like that's still a
there's one I can say, because everybody already, well, not everyone, but anyone that's paying attention knows we've been working on a bunch of stuff with Titan for the last little bit. So we did get a chance to hang out with the core team, and really the core leadership, kind of the core leadership person from Titan, who essentially runs all their publishing. He is a ridiculously fun person to spend time with. So we had a great time. May have drunk a little bit, may have played a game or two all together, and a good time was had by all. But the great thing about that is it also means we're moving into kind of the next phase with them of really getting into publishing schedules and editorial and all of that stuff. So it's all these things take longer than I wish they would, but it's kind of constant progress forward, which is very nice.
So, and I don't know if this is something we can talk about or not, but does the printing company, is that who, do they work with Titan as well? I know Image and Marvel.
Yes, they've done some work with Titan. They've basically done work with every major publisher. I think we talked about what the mixed print stuff for Cypress Hill. They also printed that for us, and so they've kind of become our partner. Yeah, thank you. They've become our partner on the printing side for these kind of unique offerings. And so it's a cool thing, because as you start to see more of what we've been working on, basically we've created these 3 different product lines, which no one else is capable of producing at this point. So it's going to be a fun time in the comics world as we can finally bring these things to life.
It's a good time to be a collector.
It's a good time to be a collector. I will say. I will apologize in advance for the massive hole that will at least be desired in our collective collectors' wallets, but I think we've got some very good offerings. I bought 3 things at Comic-Con. I got 2 things.
I was going to ask, because I would have come home completely broken.
Yeah. So 2 things for the kids.
And prints, and it looks like you have a print.
This is not a print. This is cooler. So this is we actually got. This is the giant, oversized edition of The Dark Knight Returns, which is this impeccably crafted book where. I don't want to go through too much, but it's got vellum overlays of Frank Miller's original art. It's incredible, just historic thing from one of the most important books that's ever been created. So I don't think you can see that well, but it's kind of vellum sketch of the cover that's part of it. And then what was awesome is Lynn Varley, who is the inker on Dark Knight Returns and longtime collaborator with Frank Miller, as well as an incredible artist in his own right. Sorry, not Lynn Varley. That's the colorist. Klaus Janson is Frank Miller's inker and also incredible artist in his own right. Apologies, Klaus. But we got to. He was actually there at the con, so we took those over to his table and got them signed as well. So now we still have to get Frank.
It looks like there's some signatures.
There was some signature, his signature, the one signature, but that was our one kind of thing that could not leave the con without. So we didn't spend much time on the floor. It was mostly all just, meeting and strategy and that kind of stuff. But that was one thing we couldn't resist.
I saw online so many like variants and number ones and like Iron Man this and like so many just crazy comics that came out that were like designed specifically for the con. And like I don't know. I'd have bought them all. I was like watching all these people like, did you get one of these? Did you get? And I'm like, oh my God, like I don't know. That's a big. Oh
yeah, like, there was lots of awesome stuff there. It's funny, like this is funny for me to say, but it's like we're about to make a bunch of physical things, and I'm sure I will need some extra bookshelves to have those new things. But generally, I find myself being very selective in what is taking up space, which is why I also want the digital side. So it's giving both options. But there was a bunch of there always is, but there was a bunch of very, very cool stuff. That was just the one I couldn't leave with, and it turned out actually it's kind of fun that Adam and Ricky and I each got one, so we carted them around from one end of the convention center to the other to get them signed. And then
that's me. I'm always, and it's like day one, like first thing I buy the biggest thing possible, and I have.
We did wait until the end. We got we went in the last day, last thing, got them signed, and then headed out. So it was great. But yeah, cool. Tons of fun, and and actually just to geek out for a minute, there's not a ton of news that I can share, unfortunately. So what I can say is just everything marching in the right direction. If we can get things to kind of over the last couple of hurdles is the wrong word. There's just a couple more steps we have to go through to get the last couple of things in place. But if that goes according to plan, we'll have the first things out in September and October. So that's the general timeline that I can, kind of commit to. That's what we're working for and towards. We've got a couple of other partnerships coming in, which is great. I got to spend good chunk of time with somebody I've always admired, but is legitimately one of my favorite people in comics is Jimmy Palmiotti. For anybody that doesn't know Jimmy, he was long time, started as an inker, but actually before comics started in advertising. He's got a really great creative kind of brain around a bunch of different things, but then he was an inker in comics for Marvel and all kinds of creators. He's probably best known for his collaborations with Joe Quesada in that era. So if you remember Ash, kind of in the Image era, like that was he and Joe's creation together. Painkiller Jane, their creation together. And then he continues to write and create. He's become more and more of a writer, has worked on Jonah Hex and lots of Harley Quinn stuff, like all kinds of cool stuff. And then his wife, Amanda Connor, is also an incredible artist. So they had a breakout together with an indie book through Image called The Pro. And then Jimmy's become one of those, one of the people that I love that has all this mainstream experience, but has really carved out a niche, making a bunch of his own work direct to consumer through Kickstarter primarily. So he's probably got, 10 different titles, maybe more than that he's put out there his own publishing company called Paper Films. So we spent almost 3 hours together, one morning, just kind of talking about what we're up to, what he's up to, kind of where the industry is headed. Just an incredibly generous, person, both with his time and his advice, which was great. And that may lead to some cool things. So it's very happy to do that.
Which is so that's funny that you say that, because which this is tied to something else that I kind of wanted to bring up. We'll see. But, I heard someone else say, I think just yesterday, that comics were dead and they're dying and they're going away. And
Right.
what was his take on where the industry is at?
Yeah, I mean, I think the take is, I think if you're talking about the town hall, which we can talk about for a minute too, I think slightly different context. Like in that context, it was more about NFT comics. And I don't disagree with that. Like there has been no notable, we've tried, other people have tried. There's been no notable kind of like win for, NFT comics yet. We're still going to change that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't want to say that they're dead. Like they never were living, really.
Yeah, exactly. There were a couple of things that got, right time, right place in the market, but that there's a different scenario from what we're working on. So I think that, comics as an industry have never, the comics industry has never been healthier. It just continues to evolve like all of media. So, it's easy. I think people sometimes conflate what's happening in the direct market and comic stores, where you're still having some very notable successes that, but I think the industry is generally kind of, it's not stagnant. There's kind of like slow growth year over year, kind of in the traditional direct market. But I think we in the US especially, we think of comics as comic stores and Marvel, DC, and all the stuff that we all love there. But the medium and the art form, is exploding in bookstores, in the YA market, in the whole webtoons side of things. So there's never been more, activity for the art form and for the audience. Actually, the audience for comics is only growing. It just is looking more, it's looking different than it was, when we were growing up, going to the comic store and reading comics. And so I think, to me, that actually telegraphs a big opportunity, that you've got this kind of segment of the market, which is us, which are very interested in collecting things that we love and that we grew up with and that we have some nostalgia around, or that we have, have holes in our collection around, and, being able to do some interesting things on that side. And then we've got this whole next generation, which is not going to the comic store every week. And so the big opportunity there is to meet them where they live, which is in the digital world. And so being able to then bridge the gap between those two things, I think, is a pretty exciting way of carving out our place in all of this. So that's there are some dots to connect there in what I just said, but but I think what we're headed for, the vision for what we're headed for is, we're already the only company in Web3 that has the ability to put out print material and kind of close that full circle between, NFTs, traditional Web2, and then now into print. But as you start to see, the next couple of dots connect over the next couple of months, we're going to be able to do some things that literally no other company, even the biggest, brands, can't quite pull off with their current resources and kind of the way they're operating. So I'm excited about it. It's busy, but I'm excited about it.
But before we completely segue away and move on, one last thing is, because I feel like so much is coming and we mention it, we don't talk a lot about it. Where can people get mixed print? Where can they get the passes? Are they still available? And because I haven't got mine yet either, is there still discounts available? Are they, how's everything working now?
So I'll say two things. If you already bought a mixed print pass, do not for a second think that won't be reward, that you won't get that pass and that you won't get all the perks and benefits that we've talked about. You absolutely will, and we'll actually do something special to take care of the people that have been there from the beginning. what can I say about this? I wouldn't buy one yet if you haven't bought one. That's what I'll say. So if you have bought one, you're going to get everything plus more. If you haven't bought one, there's going to be a very specific reason to wait. But it's all going to hit with actual product. So I think that's the thing, is that instead of it being like, buy this pass and then, 2 months from now, there will be something to use it for, you'll have the chance to just get the pass as part of the first offering. And I think that's going to make more sense for everyone. And also, I think what we want to start moving away from is, is interesting. Like, I think I'll get some flack for this, but I no longer think of Macroverse as a Web3 company at all. And I think we're actually going to be moving largely away from talking about ourselves that way, from having that mental model. Like, I think the audience is not a Web3 audience. The audience is a collector audience. It's a content audience. It's a comics audience. And then we're going to kind of trick them into Web3 by having some really cool tools and technologies that are just like, oh, of course I want to do that. As opposed to, I think I really feel like we made some of these mistakes, and most people in who are trying to build content in this space made some mistakes of, sometimes made a bunch of money, but I don't think for the sustainability of the business and the ecosystem, I don't think it makes any sense to say like, oh, you need a wallet and you need to collect NFTs and then we're going to give you something. And so I think we're really going to change our own mindset around that. And instead, like, let's show you what we've made and then give you some access to it and reward you for your participation. And then if you want to take that further, here are some ways to do that, which, involve these cool new technologies. And I think that's also a way to mitigate, people's continuing concerns and ignorance around, NFTs and blockchains and, all those things.
Yeah.
What I find is funny, I'm glad you like that, Lady Valor. I think it just makes everything much easier to talk about too. It's like, we're just making cool stuff. Click this button and get something cool.
Well, and I think especially the more you're able to talk about it and the more it evolves and people are going to see, is it's not Web3, it's not comics, it's not even where I used to say Macroverse was a digital media studio. Mm-hmm. That's even questionable, like it's gonna be so much more. It's just,
it's interesting. I would say we're at this point, I would say we're a next generation content company, but it is very much going to look like a comics publisher. And so, we're going to look a lot like a publisher and a comics platform as we actually continue to kind of build out, into the larger vision and the longer term phases. But I think that's part of what we've also kind of come to, is that we have this very unique opportunity and ability to really focus in on this intersection between physical and digital, like bringing all the players to the table in a way that no one's, really been able to do before. And so by really focusing on that as a few very specific kind of core offerings with some very interesting, community oriented ways of delivering rewards and value back to, people that we do have that are collectors and across the different collections and those sorts of things, I think is going to be interesting. Like we're going to try a bunch of things. We're going to learn a bunch of things, but it's all going to be around real stuff. And I think that's the big shift for, not just for us, but I think it's the shift that every project that's going to survive is making and is going to have to make, is it's not about the speculation of what's going to come. And so it's why I even hesitate to, talk too much about it right now. It's like, I want to be able to go like, look at this. It's in the world right now. Do you want it? Boom. And here's how you get it. And here's what you get if you decide that you do want it. And
I guess
we're building towards that.
My segue now into maybe the town hall is kind of in that discussion. And this is just,
well, let's give some context. Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. Let's give some context. So, as some people may know, Macroverse is made up of a bunch of different projects. There's stuff that we've created internally. There are 5 NFT projects, character collection projects that are under the umbrella. We plan to have more than that, as we continue to move forward. But those are ones that, essentially we have acquired or brought under our umbrella as different, brands, collections, characters. And one of those is called the Koala Intelligence Agency. And, it is, I've been thinking about this a little bit more. Like I'm not, I don't feel any, I don't think we need to shy away from saying, like, it's a little bit of the oddball collection when you look at all of the things that fall under the what Macroverse has created to date, and kind of the style and the genre and the approach that we've taken to much of our other stuff. So that was both what made it very appealing, and it's also made it more challenging, because it's one that it's taken some time. We had a whole session talking about this. So if you want to get into like more of all of that, there's a whole live stream that's actually up on the KIA Twitter right now with all the details and kind of how we think about it, and where we think it needs to go from a conceptual standpoint. But what that's also left is a core group of community members that, in some ways, very rightly so, are like, what are you guys doing? And what I didn't know when we took over the project was that there's also this kind of history of just a series of rug pulls and dishonesty, and literally, like, it's been a project that's been from the original founder to now 2 or 3 other times that it's changed hands. And as I now understand it from the community, even the person that we got the project from did not turn it over with full transparency and with a full understanding of what he had done. And so there's a core group of the community that's been there from the beginning that is like, oh, here's somebody else to take advantage of us. And, from my perspective, we tried to communicate with the community when we first took over the project. And then there was a period where there was really no activity in the Discord. And so to me, it showed up a few months ago with like, oh, there are all these like pissed off people, and I don't know where this is coming from. And it's taken, months to get this town hall together to actually have this conversation. So I felt like it was very productive and very good to be able to hear people's voices. And, it's been one of the parts that's been challenging for me, is like, I have such a easier time talking to someone than I do, typing back and forth with someone, especially when I don't feel like we're having exchange. And so, I think it's been frustrating for everybody, but I'm just glad that we were able to finally have this conversation, and in whatever happens with the future of the project, at least it doesn't feel like there's this kind of weird animosity, which to me was like coming out of nowhere. So anyway, I, very, very happy to go into any more of that or hear your thoughts about it. Would love to hear your thoughts about it. But I think we're in a generally good place moving forward.
That was a lot of context.
Yes.
But this time I remembered where I was going.
Yes, good.
No, so to kind of like tie that back to what we were talking about, and this is, I don't want to say this is everyone in KIA. This is just something that I heard kind of mentioned, and it made me think about the NFT, the state of where NFTs and stuff are in general, because that's kind of what we were talking about. And I feel like the surviving NFT projects, especially the older ones, these Genesis projects that we, kind of have and took over, still kind of look at making the project survive as an NFT project, or figuring out how to make the NFT work as to do something or give utility, when what I've been thinking, and like I feel like what Macroverse is kind of doing, is thinking about like what we talked about originally, is the underlying technology and the smart contracts and what you can do with that. Not necessarily the pictures and the art. For a while it got into like, it's all about the art, but for me it was always all about the smart contracts and like what you can do with blockchain technology. And it didn't matter about the PFPs, they were just cool, and they were making money. That was all, but I don't I don't know, man. I mean, in my opinion, and I just feel like we're NFT, you're still gonna have some of those ones that drop and they're speculative and people throw money at it. But I don't know. I don't think that like it's ever gonna happen again. Like
Yeah.
NFTs, I don't think are gonna work. You know, I think it's all about that blockchain technology.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm not even sure there are any projects that, it's like the two things that I know of that are working for NFTs right now. One is Drip House, which, we're happy to be a part of.
Yeah.
And I think very much in the same way, like, they're trying to essentially abstract as much of the blockchain and the the NFT side of it away as possible. And as the mobile app and things like that come out, it's very clearly like this is just a new type of experience for collecting and having a social experience with artists and people that you like. And
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful approach, and it's working, and I think it's going to continue to work. And then I think the other thing, which I think there is still an opportunity for artists to develop relationships with collectors in the space and to sell artwork and have that kind of a community experience around digital art. And I don't think
Yeah.
the value of digital art is ever going to go away. They will fluctuate, and certain people will be up here and people will be down here, but as another way to create and monetize the creative process, to me it's really no different than going to Comic-Con and here's an artist that I like and I buy a print from them. So it's just another way to do that. And for some people, and I think increasingly more people as the next generation comes into spending their own money, as I like to talk about, more and more people will be attracted to the notion of having this digital thing that they own and control and can do things with, just as much as having a physical thing that, after a certain point, you run out of wall space and then it lives in a poster tube, somewhere. I have, as a side note, I have so many treasures of, just one aspect of my collection is I have all these original Shepard Fairey Obey posters from when I was at RISD, and they're all sitting in tubes in my storage unit because I don't have any good place to put them right now. So like I would love to have those, in a digital, be even cooler if it was like a digital physical.
I have a bare apartment and I would love to display those anytime.
I hear you. Hadn't thought about that, but all right, I hear you. So I think there's art, and I think there are platforms like Drip that are working as far as just NFTs. Like obviously there's a bunch of stuff in crypto that I think is still really attractive, and the ethos is still very much where a lot of my heart and kind of thinking is, as far as the democratization of a lot of these things. I would like to live in a world that's not controlled by just 5 tech companies. Like there's a bunch of the elements of kind of having control over your own stuff, which I'm very attracted to. But I think mass adoption, as we would like to think about it, is going to come, and it always has come from why is this better than the other thing? And so I think when we're talking about media and stories and comics and those sorts of things, like you got to find that thing that people go like, oh, this is better than the other way I was doing it because it's cooler, it's a better experience, I can do more with it. And when it comes to something like comics and collectibles, there can be a financial upside to those things. I mean, that's very, very proven in the world of collectibles, but very few people, a very small segment of the purchasers of that material are doing it just for the financial upside. The financial upside is a feature, not the only reason that people are interacting with those things. Yeah. So I think that's the world that I think we have to build as a company and as an ecosystem. And then I think the challenge for us and the opportunity at the same time is I care a ton about our creators, our collectors, the people that interact with what we're doing. I think those people should be rewarded for that in a bunch of different ways. And I that's part of what we're actually working on building right now is different rewards mechanisms that are built into the platform at the core level, so that we can say and actually this is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but probably the next thing you're going to see from us on the tech side is the introduction of a universal Macroverse account. And that will allow us to kind of connect all the different things that we've been building into one place. And once we can see all those things in one place, we can start doing some interesting things, or like giving cool rewards for what people have done. So, I think that is a stepping stone towards a lot of the things that we're building over the rest of this year and into next year. But it will start to give us a lot more ways of working with the activity that we're seeing, in different places, and bringing all those things together into this ecosystem that we've been imagining and working towards. So there's your alpha for the night.
Well, yeah, I guess going back to KIA, I think that was much
Lady Valor,
needed.
hold on, sorry. 1 second. Lady Valor's comment is, "Oh Lord, another password to forget." Actually, cool. We'll revisit that comment. We got a cool solution for that. Actually,
No
sounds
password.
silly to have a cool solution for forgetting a password, but there's actually a cool solution for that. But yes, back to the K. Yes, that's right. Yeah. We're gonna need a pint of blood. But if you send that pint of blood, then you'll never have to worry about those passwords. It's a DNA scan.
Eventually, we'll all have chips installed.
I mean, if some billionaires have their way, we certainly will.
Yeah. So no, KIA. I jumped in late, and I missed the very beginning. But man, it felt very intense, and it went much longer than I anticipated. But all in all, like it was tough for me being a Macroverse fan and an Eben fan to sit there and listen and not raise my hand and like just start defending everything, because I've kind of been on the Macroverse side the whole time, and I've kind of seen the work that you guys have put into it. So it's easy for me to get defensive. I am a holder, but I'm a holder because of Macroverse taking the project on. But the things that I really enjoyed, one, I think that they got to see one of the things I love about you, and I love about Macroverse in general, and mostly our community as a whole, was just to see the transparency and the honesty. And if someone asks the questions, it's not that you're trying to hide anything. There's just some things that business wise, like legitimately, you can't talk about. But otherwise, I mean, when it comes to to go into specifics, I mean, stuff like the funds, the KIA funds from royalties and stuff like that. And, you're like, man, I would love to talk about it. Numbers for Macroverse app subscribers, stuff like that. Man, I would love to talk about it. And to me, that's really cool. And I feel like, I don't know, it should mean a lot to them. I feel like all of us on our side learned a lot from them as far as being there from the beginning. Man, I didn't know that the project had been turned over so many times. So again, like I just kind of saw them, coming in and saying nothing's being done, and what's going on, and it makes so much more sense to me now. And I think like really what I want to do is try to spend a little bit more time getting in with them and putting in. I think we, like they said, we need to spend a little bit more time trying to engage with them and maybe do a little bit more and bring them in to our end as well. But man, I learned a lot. I thought it was good overall.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good, and it's I felt like that conversation needed to happen no matter what the future of the project holds. It's just I just don't like the feeling that I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and it's one of the very few things that really does get under my skin when I feel like you're not even going to talk to me, like
Yeah.
and so that was really the only part of all of that was really bothering me a little bit, was like, if we can't even have a conversation, how are we going to find a path forward, no matter what that path is?
Yeah.
And so so I was just happy to be able to pull that together, and shout out to Masqua and all the people that were there. I mean, he really took the lead on getting the community together. And I will say, like, one of the things I think it's easy to forget, and it was very clear in that conversation, that the harshest critics are also the people that care the most. And so it was very clear, like, a couple of the people that had really been the most vocally, I will say, I don't have a better way to say it, but who had come across as, the most anti, me and Macroverse being a part of the project, that it was very clear in the actual conversation, like, there's a tremendous dedication and caring and attachment to that project. And so, all of that just comes from that place, which ultimately is a good place. And so I think it's good to remember that, when we have these types of interactions that aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily feel pleasant, or they feel antagonistic at times, that, even in any context, that's often because the person that we're interacting with has something that they're really committed to and really care about. And it's just a lot of times, I think just a miscommunication of, like, what those two points of view are. So I thought that was a good reminder as well, just in general. And I, definitely came out of the town hall going, like, there again, I'm honestly not sure what we're going to do, what the future of the project is going to be, and whether we're going to continue to be involved in it or not, I think is a little bit to be determined. But I'm very open to, what the best course for the project is. And, I know there are some community members that are putting their heads together and kind of, coming back with a proposal about how we, might continue to work together, or what it looks like if we don't, or, kind of how that shakes out. So, I'm very open to it. I genuinely want what's best for the project. And so, if what's best for the project is to, part ways and wish each other luck, that's one possible outcome. And if what's best for the project is, to find a way for it to be, meaningfully a part of what we're building as an ecosystem, then that's great too. So I think, there's a uncertain outcome at the moment, but at least it feels like it's going to be a positive one, no matter how that shakes out.
I think my takeaway being there, and it was an honor, they mentioned the show. They may not have been the great. May not have been the great mission.
Yes, they did mention the street.
I want to say, if any of them do ever tune in and watch, like, I want to invite all of my friends and family from Macroverse to, take a step in and actually, go into the Discord, go hang out, say what's up, engage, because I don't think we have. So we're guilty too. And I want to extend an invitation. Like, I really wanted to speak up, but, like, I would love for some of those community members to come tell some stories and make those characters come to life and come hang out and, like, just, see what we do. Because I think on their end, they would like Macroverse more if they were more involved and got part of the process. It's just so much fun.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, I personally want everything to pan out, and I want to see us, work together. I love the project. The people are cool. I mean,
totally.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I would like to see that too. I think it's hard, and I understand why, because part of this is just, I think about it so much every day about kind of where we've been, what we're trying to build. Like, it's just part of my DNA at this point, and, and evolves as well. So, I know it's hard to convey kind of how we see all of these puzzle pieces coming together, especially when, some of those puzzle pieces are in my pocket and not on the table at the moment. But, I think it's sometimes, maybe it's not hard to wrap your head around, but I think it's a different model for thinking about how to build a project when you're focused on one project and one, the objectives for one franchise, let's call it one, collection, versus, trying to think about how do we build a platform and how do we build an ecosystem and how do we build a set of tools that are broadly applicable about across a bunch of different projects and use cases and types of activities. And, something that, in my mind is going to take probably 5 years to fully flesh out and accomplish, as opposed to, how do we get something exciting and, that looks like there's activity happening, in one project versus another. And it kind of goes back to where we started, for better or worse. And I know, we're certainly guilty of this on the GSA as well, which I know is your favorite project in the Macroverse, which has also honestly been neglected in the midst of everything else we've been working on. In my mind, that project is not dead because I know where it fits into everything that we're building. But if you were to just forensically look at like what activity has happened in the project over the past year, it's not a lot. I have a piece of cover art that I haven't shared yet, which is really dope. But we haven't gotten as far down.
I must see that.
I will share that. And part of that is also realizing, because of the way we're building this, and frankly, because of, in my mind, the way the market is right now, there's not real value in just trying to put stuff out just because. So I think, there is a time and a place where, we'll come back to the GSA as now something we can really make something exciting around and treat it like a real launch of a real title, of a real franchise. And surprise some people that think it's gone forever, that there's still some value and utility in having some agents. So I look forward to that. But I think as we're looking at how we're building all these things out, like I have to make these kinds of decisions of like, I say I, but I mean the whole team too. Like we have to make these decisions which balance, where are we generating revenue from? How do we continue to build the company in a way that's sustainable? How do we attract not just existing users, but new users? And how's that going to work, from a tech standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from a fund allocation standpoint, from, all those different things have to be balanced. And as we look across that, what I'm constantly looking for, and I'm basically, at this point kind of also, and have been kind of the head of the product development side as well. So it's like, as we're making product decisions, creating user experiences on the UI UX side, working with developers to try to build those things out, all of those things have to be kind of looked at through the lens for me is, how do we make something that we can then plug as much into as possible so that we're amplifying the effects of that particular tool set. And so, the thing I mentioned on the town hall, which a lot of people know about, is, we created this way of, creating, of showing characters with, metadata that has stats and inventory. And so, we've talked about this in the past, but it's like we will eventually and actually truly be able to bring any of the collections that we have, control of the contract for into that system. And so once we can do that, it won't just be one collection which has that. It will instantly give a bunch of utility and new features to a bunch of collections. And once a bunch of collections, this is kind of the product thinking. Like once you have a bunch of collections that have that shared tool set and that share an underlying foundation around how that stuff is built, all of a sudden the door is open to think about what other kinds of experiences can you create with that shared infrastructure. And so, as a lot of people know, one of my partners is from gaming, so it's not a hard stretch to think about if you've got a bunch of different types of characters that have a shared stats, inventory, experience point system. All of a sudden there's some pretty fun things that you can do with that. And so, again, these things take way longer than I wish they did. There are a bunch of reasons for that, which at some point I will fully talk about. But it's like we're getting to that point where these common, kind of foundational things will be able to be multiplied across all the different things that, we currently have and new things that we'll build and, all of that. So it's an amplification effect as opposed to, a focus on one particular thing at a time.
Well, you're kind of touching.
That's my story.
That's it. You're touching on like my last point from town hall, and this is something that you said, and this was based on a point that was made that basically the things that had been released had not done so great. And a lot of that was due into part being on Ethereum and the time and gas and all of that. And, basically you said nothing else will be built on Ethereum. And I want to know, like, I feel like where you're going. Is that Solana? Can you say it? Like, where are we moving? Because I feel like it's official, basically, and now I'm curious.
I'm not going to say what that is yet. I think that it's actually not quite as simple as that. So I think it actually is more useful for anyone listening to just think about what we talked about earlier, which is the shift that we're making is less about what chain we're going to, and it's more about how you operate with these different tools and these pieces, with these puzzle pieces. So it's less about, are we minting on Ethereum? Are we minting on Solana? It's more about, if we can bring these different things together, if we can recognize all the collectibles that have been, picked up through Drip, and if we can connect that to the collections that we have on Ethereum, and if we can make new stuff that maybe doesn't even have to, be a chain specific, experience, but rather is about the experience that we can create across those different things. It changes some of the thinking and some of how we're building some of this stuff. So, I think this is something else we learned from Drip. And it's funny, like, Drip did it first, but I will say this is something I've been thinking about for, over a year, which is, I think, part of the friction for Web3 is that, you have to live in a world where, things are automatically on chain. And I think one of the things will actually really facilitate the next, that will facilitate a bunch of new users is to get away from that, where it's the user's choice. And so, when you hit the secure button on Drip, that's the moment where that thing gets minted to your wallet. It's not when it shows up. I think that's a really meaningful design decision when you have something like a comics platform, hypothetically, where you don't have to necessarily collect it, but if you want to, you can. So so I do know what we're doing, but it's not as simple as ETH versus Solana.
I got it. So I guess to sum that up, I would say in one word, which again, when I first met you, man, I used to just love listening to you talk, because I would get so pumped. Like every single time. And even just with like your introduction to like, yourself and Macroverse and what everybody, did in the history. I loved it. The introductions every time. But something you used to always say, one word back in the day that I loved, and I think it applies now more than ever. And it's like something that was a dream, is interoperability. And I think like that's kind of become the main objective, rather than Web3 comics or digital comics, is like how to make everything work together.
Yeah, I mean, it is interoperability there. I'll say it again. I think the dream is, and even now, extending it even further to things in the physical world. So I think when you have the ability to have a system that can recognize activity, participation, things that people collect, things that people, choose to spend their time on or their money on. If we can start to see that no matter where it comes from, that creates a bunch of new opportunities for the way that you deal with fandom, that you create things, that you reward things, that you give people, perks and incentives to stick around. Just so many things that open up once you can put all those things in one place and, see what people are doing. And that not only, you can almost look at it as like, one of the things that makes Netflix so powerful is, they've created this algorithm that very quickly gets to know you. And so, it's not always perfect, but, very, very quickly it starts to know, oh, you like these kind of shows, you like these kind of movies. And, in the traditional Web3 world, like we have a different type of, there's a lot of things that on-chain data does really, really well. And it does open new doors for different types of mechanics and experiences that, you certainly can't do in closed ecosystems. So we don't want to get rid of that, but we also think that there's a whole new world of things that can be done once there's a greater level of connectivity between these different ecosystems. Again, I always say, like, brilliantly or stupidly have taken on this other thing to solve. So as part of what we're building out, I always think, this has always been my experience building products and apps and websites and everything that I've done in the gaming world. All of this stuff is, like, for me, like when I'm designing things or when I'm thinking through like how these different user flows work, which has been very much what I've been doing for the past couple of days, and is why I was late to our start today. But as I'm working on that kind of stuff, like, to me, it's like there, and this goes back to Web3 too. There's so much focus on building infrastructure, and of course, like, we need a lot of that infrastructure. But if you look across every chain, this is again why I sing the praises of Drip. If you look across every chain, 90+% of the apps that are on those chains are the same 5 things. It's dexes, it's swapping and trading, it's tokens, it's it's all DeFi stuff primarily, and then there's some NFTs that kind of show up around that. There are very, very few actual consumer applications, so it's not a surprise that there are very few consumers, because, for the average person, like, what are they going to come do here? They got to get fully red pilled before they can, start to use those things. And if the market is not, hitting all-time highs, why does anyone do that? So, I think that's, again, like, to see Drip be, in the top 5 almost every month across all of Solana, like, to me, really shows that, this is the way, to quote the Mandalorian, is you create an experience that is novel, that has some product market fit with the type of people that, are engaged in that type of content. And, while it's still, it's still quite crypto focused compared to something like Instagram, it's not crypto at all compared to something like Uniswap. So there's a clear progression towards, this is just a cool app that I have on my phone, and I get to meet cool creators and see cool stuff. And it's when I first met Vibhu, who is the CEO there, it's like one of the ways that he described the app, I think it was him, that said, this is Instagram meets Pokemon card collecting. And, like, I wrap my head around that very easily. And, like, there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, that sounds fun and cool. So I think it's we're not going to do what Drip does, but what we're building is has a similar line of thinking. And I really do think it's the pivot that we needed to make to kind of get to where we actually wanted to go from the beginning.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah. I can absolutely promise exciting times are ahead. That is what I can absolutely promise.
I mean, I can feel it. I mean, I don't know. I'm excited for, here in the next several weeks to months, whatever, when some of this stuff starts to finish up and those announcements are made and, stuff like that. And I just, I'm excited to see, what all that entails.
Yep. Well, start thinking about your Macroverse username, and we'll have more to talk about from there.
There we
I probably can already guess what yours is anyway, but just
in some variety.
Yes, exactly.
Tiny Valor.
Tiny Valor, Lady Universe. I would like the return of that combo. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm glad we got to just kind of chat about some of this stuff, because I do think there's a lot of opportunity in so much of across all these different things, like tons of opportunity in the collectibles world. There's tons of opportunity in Web3, but I think the evolution of these things is critical. And I think it's fun to kind of be what at least feels like kind of in a small group of people that are kind of building towards that evolution. Yeah, now we can the real work can begin. Good times for sure. And so, yeah, I think, just to put a button on, what we were talking about with the KIA town hall, like that is recorded. It's both in the KIA Discord and in the Macroverse Discord. So if anybody wants to go hear that full conversation, it's up there. As always, we will invite you to come into the Macroverse Discord and hang out with the community. Say hi to Tiny, say hi to Lady Valor, say hi to me, and just a lot of the conversation is just honestly kind of like friends chilling. And so that's what I love about it, and then occasionally we also talk about storytelling. So
I was gonna say, if it's not day-to-day, friends and family, basically the way I say it, hanging out, generally we're talking about content or writing or making something. I mean, it's a bunch of good people, man. I love it. I mean, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And I will say, I will invite everybody to like and subscribe and share and tell everybody to come to the Discord and hang out.
I will absolutely second that emotion. So yeah, come to the Discord, hang out. And in other news, we do have our Web2 mobile app out. There's about 1,000 episodes of content up on the Macroverse mobile app. So if you haven't experienced that yet, at the moment everything is free. So great time to kind of jump in and see the type of content that we've been making and the format that we created for digital comics, and all of that will kind of circle back around into this next phase as well. But it won't be free forever, but it is free for now. So you've got a ton of awesome comics to dive into. And then
speaking of
the other
app,
place. Oh yeah.
What's the first Marvel title that's going to be on the app?
Good question. I mean, honestly, a lot of our focus has been, I think Marvel and DC kind of do what they do, and we love it. We're massive fans. We could have a whole conversation about RDJ and Doctor Doom on the fandom side of this, but mostly our focus is outside of what Marvel and DC is doing, and then at some point, it won't surprise me if we end up, working with them as well. But we do have some really great new stuff in production right now coming to the app from some very cool creators, some of whom you'll definitely know their names. So excited about that. They'll definitely, the Titan stuff will start to show up at some point as well. So that I can't say, but lots of fun stuff, coming to the app, coming to the platform. And then to me, one of the most exciting things, which we've been working on for a very long time, is being able to integrate those together, so that the app and the app experience and the platform experience becomes one experience. And so part of what we've talked about is, enabling that also. So good stuff all around. And
very cool.
That's So yeah, I mean, I will one at the end here. One last comment on our drip house schedule right now. So we did not have a drop this past week, both for DMC and for the Macroverse channel. However, whatever you contributed to the leaderboard will carry over into the next drop, which probably is not going to be this week either, but we're putting together stuff for the next batch of things. And so I just want to have a few kind of in the bank before we start releasing again. But anything that you have contributed will carry over into whatever perks and rewards. And then we're also rethinking our perks and rewards a little bit. We talked about that in a previous show. But I want to try a few things with that. Vogu, on the other hand, is on schedule for the next drop for next week. So getting the last bit of artwork in from Jason right now. It looks amazing, of course. But that does mean you got an extra week to lock in that very limited edition legendary, which is still available at the 100,000 droplet level. And a couple of those have been claimed so far. So definitely, if you want that guy, you got a couple more days to get him. And then you got another very cool Vogue drop to look forward to, including something that no one is going to expect, which I'm very excited about. So that is the biggest tease I can give you. This next Vogue drop,
the first fully animated drip done by Macroverse.
Not quite, but it's not that far off. You're in the general geography of something we've been working on. And not only that, we've been working on this one is going to be. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much. It's super cool. After we announce it and show it, then we should do a whole deep dive on what this means into next week's episode, because it's something we can do. It's something other people can play with. There is a tangible component to it. There's some very cool things we're gonna be able to do with this surprise Vogue element launching first on Drip House next week. So look forward to that. Lock in your perks for Vogue. Get ready for new stuff on the Macroverse and DMC channels, and actually some additional DMC stuff coming down the road here pretty shortly as well. So with that, I think we'll say a fond farewell for the evening. And Tiny, thank you for hosting as always. As we said earlier, come to the Discord, find us on Twitter, say hi, come interact, and get excited, because there's a lot to be excited about, even if we can't talk about all of it just yet. Good night. Oh, I should say post Comic-Con, I should say Excelsior.